On the 26th of February 1959, a search party crossing a mountain slope in the northern Urals found a tent half buried in snow, pitched with textbook precision and empty. Inside, 9 backpacks, 9 pairs of boots, warm coats still folded, dinner laid out and uneaten. Everything a person needs to survive a night at -25, abandoned in perfect order. The tent had not been torn open by anything outside. The knife cuts ran from within. 9 experienced hikers had slashed their way out of their own shelter and walked into a subarctic night in their socks, downhill, away from everything that could keep them alive. You have heard this story told with monsters. The documented record is stranger, and in the end, the true explanation is worse than any of them. They were not amateurs, and everything that follows is worse because of it. 10 students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnical Institute, engineers, most of them, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, one of the strongest expedition leaders in the Institute's storied hiking club. Their route, a 16-day winter trek through the northern Urals to the mountain Otorten, difficult enough to earn them the highest certification Soviet sport tourism offered. They were young, close, and documented everything. 2 cameras working constantly, a group diary, even a satirical trip newspaper they wrote by hand in the tent. The record they left behind is why we can follow them almost to the last hour. At the last inhabited outpost, the 10th member, Yuri Yudin, was crippled by joint pain and made the miserable, sensible decision to turn back. There is a photograph of the goodbye. Yudin hugging his friends, everyone smiling, 10 becoming 9. Hold that image. Yudin will spend the next 54 years as the answer to an unbearable question. The man whose bad knee made him the only survivor of his own expedition. For the next 4 days, the 9 moved up the Auspia Valley on skis, by their own diary in high spirits and hard conditions, temperatures falling past -20, wind enough that one entry compares it to the air over a runway. On the 1st of February, they made a decision hikers have argued about ever since. Rather than retreating to the sheltered tree line for the night, they pitched camp on the open eastern slope of a mountain the local Munsi people called Kholat Shakal. In Munsi, the name means dead mountain, not from legend, but reportedly for its lifelessness. Nothing grows on it, nothing lives there worth hunting. The last frame on their cameras shows them digging into that slope, cutting a flat platform into the packed snow, exactly as the manuals taught, and pitching the tent inside the cut. Remember the cut. Every version of this story turns on it, and no one would understand why for 62 years. They ate, wrote their trip newspaper, hung their boots, and settled in. 9 people, warm, fed, and certified for exactly these conditions, in a tent that would be found precisely as they left it. Their expected telegram home never came. Now the story belongs to the people looking for them. Delay was built in, expeditions ran late all the time, so nearly 3 weeks passed before search parties, aircraft, and eventually the military swept the route. On February 26th, searchers found the tent on the slope of Kholat Shakal. The cuts, the boots, the folded coats, the uneaten meal. And then, leading away from it, the detail every investigator flagged: footprints, 8 or 9 sets, in socks or barefoot, in a competent group, not running in panic, but walking steadily downhill into the dark toward the tree line, 1.5 kilometers away. Whatever moved 9 trained hikers out through the walls of their own tent had them retreating in order into cold that kills the unshod in under an hour. At the tree line, under a large cedar, the searchers found the remains of a small fire and the first 2 hikers in their underwear, frozen. Above them, branches had been snapped off the cedar to a height of 5 meters. Someone had climbed, again and again, either for firewood or to see something back up the slope. Between the cedar and the tent, spaced out along the return line, they found 3 more, Dyatlov among them, face up toward the camp. They had died trying to walk back to the tent they had cut themselves out of. 5 found, 4 missing. The inquest that would puzzle the world was already open, and the worst of the evidence was still under the snow. The last 4 were found in May, when the melt exposed them. In a ravine beyond the cedar, under 4 meters of snow, on a floor of cut branches. They had survived the longest. They were wearing clothes taken from their dead friends, and their injuries changed the case entirely. 3 of the 4 had trauma no fall on a slope could easily explain. Skulls fractured, chest crushed, ribs broken in rows, in one case with force the examining doctor compared to a car crash. Yet the surrounding soft tissue showed almost no external wounds, as if the force had been broad, blunt, and enormous, like a wall. One of the 4, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue and eyes. Say the unglamorous truth about that detail now, because the genre never does. Her body had lain for 3 months in a snow-fed stream. Soft tissue loss in those conditions is what forensic science expects. Decomposition, not mutilation. The horror of this story does not need embellishment, and the record does not support it. The Soviet inquest measured everything, explained little, and closed the case in 3 months with a sentence that fed 60 years of theories. The hikers died, it concluded, of a compelling natural force. The files went to the archive. The pass was quietly closed to expeditions for 3 years, and the vacuum filled with everything a vacuum fills with: lights in the sky, secret weapons, the Mansi, radiation on 2 garments that trace back, mundanely, to one hiker's job at a nuclear facility. Then, in 2021, 62 years later, 2 engineers published the answer that fits: a mechanism. Alexander Puzrin and Johann Gaume, landslide and avalanche specialists, modeled the one detail every theory had stepped over: the cut. To pitch the tent, the hikers had sliced a platform into the slope, severing the base of a wind-packed slab of snow above them. Their own manuals called the slope safe, too shallow for avalanches. What the manuals didn't know, and 1959 couldn't measure, was that a small, delayed slab release, triggered hours later by wind loading the slope in the dark, needs no steep mountain. A block of dense snow the size of a car moving 5 meters onto people lying rigid on a ski-floored tent bed produces exactly the injuries in the autopsy files: crushed chests, broken skulls, no external wounds, a wall of snow, a broad, blunt, compelling natural force. Follow their last hours through that lens, and every strange detail becomes a rational decision made by injured, freezing, well-trained people in absolute darkness. Each one correct by the book, each one fatal in sequence. Russia's own reopened investigation reached the same family of conclusions in 2020. Avalanche, visibility near zero. A tent they could not find again. The genre wants a monster on Dead Mountain, And the science offers something colder. No villain, no malice, no warning. A textbook camp on a gentle slope, and physics that waited until they were asleep. That is why this story would not die. Not because it can't be explained, because the explanation could happen to anyone who does everything right. Yuri Yudin spent the rest of his life inside that photograph. He helped identify his friends' belongings, kept their memory, and never fully accepted any explanation. The survivor's privilege and his sentence. He died in 2013 and was buried where he had always said he belonged, with the other 9 at their memorial in Yekaterinburg. 10 went into the photographs. The photographs are what came home. As we step out of the shadows for today, I want to thank you for your time. There are many more grim truths hidden in the past, waiting to be told. To ensure you're here for the next one, please subscribe. If you are ready to explore another dark chapter right now, you can click the video on your screen. Stay curious.